Hi everyone and welcome to Display Repair. In this video we're going to show you how to make a proper diagnosis of a car problem. Why is this so important? Well, obviously if you know what's going on with your car, what the problem is, you'll be able to solve the problem in a more quality manner. If you won't be able to solve the problem completely, at least you know what's wrong with the car and what awaits you in terms of the time for repairs, what are the probability of you repairing it or a mechanic. You'll know more or less what the repair bill may be, and you'll get lots of useful information again if you're not able to solve the problem. So a very useful thing, and I hope this video helps. Stay tuned.
DisplayRepair.com. Be sure to visit us at our website DisplayRepair.com, where you can find more useful car and driving tips.
This video is based on our previous video about a story where my late father had a big problem with his company car and how a situation can unfold where a bad diagnosis is made on the car and how you can end up. If you're interested in watching the whole video, I'll leave a link in the card in the corner and in the video description. I think it's an interesting story and you may be able to get some useful information for yourself. Dear viewers, sorry for taking your time, but before we start, I just want to make one thing clear. This video is not a magical formula where we tell you follow step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and you're gonna solve any car problem out there. No, this is not the case. The car is a complicated machine. The car systems have different types of diagnostics that are done in order to get a proper and good result. So, every of those diagnostics deserves a video on its own. What we are trying to explain here is the basic principle of how things are done. And believe me, this is so powerful that lots of car problems can be solved in the same way in a car that's made 30, 40, 50 years ago and a car that rolled off the production line yesterday. I know you'll see this as unbelievable, but trust me, lots of things on the car, despite the fact that there are lots of electronics, lots of gadgets on the car, the basic principles have remained the same. And this is what we're talking about. So what we're going to show you is applicable on most cars. The main thing is to have this principle in mind and the idea of what you're doing. Now, to diagnose any car problem out there, you will need two essential things. The first one is basic car knowledge, and you will need some tools. The basic car knowledge you'll need is a bit more over checking just the oil, checking the coolant, checking the changing the wiper blades and so on. You'll have to be a bit more advanced than that. I would recommend knowing how an inner combustion engine works, the basic parts, okay, how all the systems are intertwined with each other, so how the fuel intake works, how the air intake works, the basics about electrics and electronics, about the transmission, about the suspension, about the exhaust systems, and so on. If you don't know anything about this, you can educate yourself. There is a ton of material on the internet. And I think if you have the persistence and if you have the will, if you're interested, you can learn the basics in a couple of days. If you know around cars and if you know the basics even better, you'll be more successful. When you have good knowledge about how all of these systems work with each other and how they affect each other, you will open a gateway for yourself to solve lots of problems on your car. Sometimes, trust me, when you're very good with this knowledge, you can even solve the problem without an OBD tool, just by listening, seeing, and hearing the problem. Regarding tools, to make a good diagnostic, the first thing you'll need is a good OBD tool. We've made a separate video on this topic, how to use an OBD tool, how to reset a check engine light with an OBD tool, how to reset the throttle body. I've made a review about this specific OBD tool, so I wouldn't want to waste your time. All in all, you should know that if you drive anything from 1996, I think, onwards, you should have an OBD tool to make a good diagnostic, in most cases, a good diagnostic, and to make an easier diagnostic of the problem. The whole system works. You have an OBD tool or an OBD reader that connects to the car's computer. The car computer registers every problem that a certain system or systems have. It registers it as a numeric code that you can read with the OBD tool. That's how the system works in a nutshell. What will the OBD tool enable you to do? Well, you connect it to the OBD port, and when reading the code, you'll get a definition of what's wrong. And that tool will enable you to if not exactly pinpoint the exact problem and the exact part that's causing the problem, it will at least pinpoint the system that is causing the problem, okay? So you don't have to wander around if it's the fuel system, if it's the air intake system, if it's the ignition system, and so on. The OBD system has its flaws also, it's not always 100% correct, but in the majority of cases, it's a big help and it will let you make a quick and correct diagnosis of the problem. But having the OBD tool will not solve every problem regarding car diagnostics. Lots of people have this wrong notion that it's a plug-and-play system, so you whatever happens on the car, you connect the OBD tool and the problem is solved. No, it does not work that way. For instance, the OBD tool will not tell you if you have a bad timing belt. It will not tell you if you have a bad serpentine belt. It will not tell you for certain problems on the suspension unless there is a sensor especially dedicated to that. All in all, there are multiple problems on the car that the OBD tool will not read. One of these problems is especially electric and electronic systems, where the most common problems happen on the car. There are two other tools that you should have for solving these kinds of problems, and that is first a 12-volt tester and the other one is a multimeter. A 12-volt tester is the primordial tool for solving any kind of electric problem, and even to this day, with modern cars, with modern electrics and electronics, it is very effective in finding the problem. The principle of how it works is very simple. We've made a specific video about this, and it's very simple to use, and you can make a diagnostic in a matter of minutes, especially when you know what to look at, again, what are the components of the system, and so on. The other tool is the multimeter. No need to say this is a tool that will help you even with electronic problems. Very precise readings, lots of options on it. You can even use it around the house to check the electrics on the house installation for higher voltage and amperage. With it, you can check your car battery, you can check the alternator and the alternator voltage, you can check various electric systems, you can check the ground connections, and there are lots of possibilities for it. All in all, these two things are very important and are very useful to have in your toolkit for solving these kinds of problems. Besides this, in my primitive toolkit, I have also a nice crowbar and a bigger screwdriver. It's very effective in finding problems with the suspension, with various mounts, engine mounts, and so on. But with these systems, especially on the suspension, most of these problems, they can be seen visually, and with a proper inspection and with checking the clearances and everything with the crowbar, you can see if something is wrong with the suspension. Needless to say, these are the basics. There are dozens of other tools and gadgets that have the purpose of diagnosing a problem. For instance, I don't know, there is a tool for measuring the engine's compression. For every cylinder, there is a tool for measuring the pressure within the AC system. There is a tool for checking the battery that's dedicated specifically to that, if the battery is good or bad, and if it can hold the charge. There are various other tools. The point on this part, sorry for taking your time. With these tools that I told you, this will give you a good opportunity to get an idea of some of the basic problems. And the more diagnostic tools you have, the better. But these are the tools that I've used lots of times, that have helped me lots of times, and that I recommend buying, and that are not that expensive to buy, okay? It's a one-time investment, and you can have it for years to come. Other more expensive tools, I would recommend either renting, or if you're buying them, check out if you're really going to need them, what they're for, and if you're going to really need them for a longer period of time. First and foremost, I would recommend to use what was God-given to you, and that is your senses and your intelligence. Mainly, listen, watch, and smell around the car. If you combine that with your intelligence and with some basic car knowledge, very effective diagnostic tool, and trust me, it is equally effective as an OBD tool, especially if you know your way around cars. What do I always like to say people through these videos? Don't treat the car like a home appliance. You use it until it runs down and that's it. Always listen to your car. Always pay attention to how the engine works, how the gear shifts, is there any noises within the suspension, and so on. And I'm not meaning this in a way for you to be paranoid, and be tense regarding this, but rather briefly pay attention to while you're driving. With listening, you can find out lots of problems on time, okay? if you notice any kind of humming, especially if you notice screeching, grinding, or something like that, listening to it can easily lead you to the cause of the problem. Besides this, also making a visual inspection of your car can lead you to see things like leaks, like traces of fuel, God forbid, traces of coolant. They can lead you to see damages on the engine. Also, and this may sound funny, smelling is also a very powerful diagnosis tool. You have various troublesome smells on the car that can, again, God forbid, appear. For instance, there is the smell of bad eggs and sulfur, which comes from a bad battery. There is the smell of a burning serpentine belt. There's the smell of heating up or burning insulation from wires. There are all kinds of smells. And again, if you know your way around cars, lots of times you'll be able to pinpoint the problem and even solve the problem. Now we come to the part that is, in my opinion, the most important, and that is the so-called elimination process. I like to call this the elimination process since, at least in my experience, when finding some sort of problem on the car, it is very important to, when you know the whole system, when you know the parts of it, how they are connected to each other, you know where to start. I will make a very simple example that will give you the basic principle of what I'm talking about. You have a low beam headlight that's not working. You change the bulb and still it's not working. The elimination process tells you this. Take the 12-volt tester and start testing from the light bulb connector. Okay, check if there is a power input to the light bulb connector, and then go through the rest of the components. Go first through the fuse, then go through the relay, then go through the stock switch, then go through the ignition switch. It doesn't have to be in this order. With every car, it's a bit different, but the basic principle is the same. When you know all of the components and the basic principle, you start eliminating what's wrong. You first check the connector. Is there input to the connector? No, there isn't. Let's check the fuse. Is there input to the fuse? Is the fuse burnt out? It's okay. Let's check the relay. And when you go through all the system, you're going to find the problem. It's a closed loop on most cars, and one of these components is the problem. When you go through that elimination process, you're bound to find the problem. In my personal experience, this elimination process applies to almost every system that is on the car. Be it the fuel injection system, be it the air intake system, be it the brake system, be it the electric system. If you do this elimination process where you first know all the basic components, how they work with each other, and you test them all, you're bound to find where the problem is. Another thing regarding diagnosis that I would highly recommend doing, and to make a proper diagnosis, is not to jump to conclusions. And this goes double with modern cars with lots of sensors and electronics and everything else. I'll tell you of a primitive but very good example. Recently on the Skoda there was an engine misfire on cylinder number 3. I connected the OBD tool. I made a video about this where I explained the whole procedure in detail. The OBD tool gave me the P0303 code, so it pinpointed the exact ignition coil and what I'm supposed to replace. So, that's very good. But besides that, I also got a DTC code for a bad lambda sensor. And if I was to blindly listen to the OBD tool, I would go and change the lambda sensor, and I would be wrong. Why? Well, that DTC code for the lambda sensor origins from bad exhaust fumes that were caused by the engine misfire. After I finished everything, I took the car for a spin, for a test drive, and in a matter of a couple of dozen kilometers, the check engine light was gone. And when I connected the OBD tool, so was the code for the bad lambda sensor. My point on this part, if I jump to a conclusion and change the lambda sensor, I throw money away and just do more work than that was necessary, And this is the case with diagnosing any car problem out there on almost any system. Don't blindly look at one place. Always have the bigger picture, and again, how those systems are intertwined with each other. This was a good example. This will help you to perhaps not only notice the culprit of the problem, but perhaps other problems that may be in the vicinity. And finally, dear viewers, use the ultimate diagnostic tool that will solve almost any car problem, and that is your common sense and your intelligence. This, combined with some basic car knowledge and even better advanced car knowledge, is the ultimate diagnostic tool. Why am I saying this? Well, I've noticed that since I'm a car enthusiast and I like to follow all of these trends. For the last at least 20 years, there is a big reliance on technology exclusively, okay? I'll tell you the exact example. Lots of car technicians and lots of DIY car enthusiasts rely exclusively on the OBD tool. So you connect the OBD tool and you get an error code and you go strictly to that. You don't look anything around any other system that's connected to that, how they work together and everything else. And lots of times they make a mistake. And I'm not bad mouthing the OBD system. It's a very good system, advanced system, very big help, you know. But again, I must mention this. The car is a specific machine. It is a very, very complicated machine that has lots of systems that are intertwined. And if you don't look at them all together, and if you don't see how they work, and all of this demands common sense, knowledge, and intelligence, if you don't use all of this, then you're bound to make a bad diagnosis of the problem, you know. So always look at the problem from a wider perspective. I'll make, again, a very simple example. If the OBD tool tells you it's an ignition coil, I'll take that example again. Check the connector, check the wiring, you know, just take a look around the engine. If you have a suspension problem and you suspect that the knocking is coming from one place, always check the other components, okay? What I'm trying to say, always have a wider perspective when diagnosing a car problem. Don't just blindly look at one thing, but look at the whole system. So, dear viewers, that's it for this video. I'm sorry it's a bit lengthy, but there is no short way to relay this message in quality and to give you a good idea of what you're supposed to do. The main takeaway is to use the elimination process and use your common sense and intelligence. You know, here is the most powerful diagnostic tool. When you use it properly, when you apply it properly, and when you think things through, the OBD tool, the multimeter, the volt tester, and every other gadget out there is just an addition to a good car diagnostic and a confirmation of the problem. Thank you very much for watching, especially thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe, it's a huge help for what we're doing. If you find the time, watch our other videos. I think you'll find some useful videos about cars, driving, maintenance, and else that may help around your car and maintaining your car. Thanks for watching and thanks for your time.